listening to the expressions of frustration from individuals just like you relative to lack of intensity during home workouts. And the reality is, for a lot of individuals, the environment just doesn't do it. But if you can get motivated enough to show up, it's quite frustrating when you don't feel like you've done anything other than just punch the clock, get in, and get out. But that's commendable too. We want you to keep doing that. We want you to remain disciplined. We want you to keep on top of that progressive habit and keep that routine in place, because it's so much harder to get back into a routine if you let things fall apart. But we also want to ensure that, at least to the smallest degree, that your workouts feel progressive and that you feel like you've done something relative to future achievement, that you've done something that's making you better. So in this video, we're going to cover 10 different things you can do, different variables you can manipulate in your own workouts to ramp up that intensity even just a little bit. So one of the most limiting beliefs is that the only way to increase intensity in your workouts is to increase the load on the bar, or in short, lift heavier weights on whatever exercise you might be doing. And that's certainly a variable that you can manipulate, but we're not even going to touch base on that right now, because that seems to be the primary variable that the majority of people can't do anything about. They might have dumbbells, but nowhere near the amount of weight they would need to apply adequate stress, considering the exercises they might normally employ in their workout regimen. So these 10 ideas are short, sweet, and something anybody can do wherever you are with whatever equipment you might have access to. The first thing is you can adjust your rest. You can shorten your rest times. You would be amazed how dramatic of an increase of intensity occurs when you shorten your rest periods by 15 seconds per set, even 10 seconds. If you remain strict with that shortened rest, immediately the intensity of effort increases, simply because you're given less time to fully recover, and that forces you to work harder and harder on each consequent set. Another thing you can do is increase the number of repetitions. Now, this is not a very popular method, but it's also very effective. So, in a situation in which you don't really have another choice, consider the fact that maybe you normally do 40-pound chest presses for sets of 12 to 15, but you only have 30-pound dumbbells available to you. Well, let's ramp up the intensity by aiming for sets of 20 to 25, because in that rep range, those weights will be more than adequate. And it might not be something you're used to, but hey, it's a different stimulus on the body, and it will present a different degree of intensity. Now, something to consider as well is, by combining some of these variables as we move along, you can maximize the intensity even more. You don't have to adjust only one. Imagine shortening your rest by 15 to 20 seconds and increasing your rep range in the same workout. There's a lot of intensity that's going to be accumulating across some of those sets during that session. Another variable for consideration is supersets, which is basically a combination of two exercises executed back-to-back with no rest in between. This is often done as agonist-antagonist training, or prioritizing two opposing movement approaches. So think like a push-pull, doing a dumbbell chest press combined with a dumbbell row. One is pushing and one is pulling, and they place greater emphasis on different primary muscle groups, which allows you to put them back-to-back while still maintaining a relatively high level of effort on both exercises back-to-back. You could also do supersets on the same muscle group, and this is a little more advanced but also very effective. So if you're getting really bored of push-ups, but chest presses with 30-pound dumbbells don't do anything for you, try doing chest presses with 30-pound dumbbells and then doing your push-ups right after. If you're more of an advanced lifter, if you consider yourself quite strong and you can excel to a high degree with both exercises executed separately, you might find yourself humbled when you combine them together and prioritize the same muscle groups across both exercises with no rest back-to-back. Further, you could consider giant sets or circuits. This approach isn't always the most popular with the strength community, but sometimes you gotta bite the bullet and do what you can with what you've got. So, giant sets and circuits are generally 3 exercises or more executed in rapid succession with no breaks between exercises. So this can be done in the same 2 approaches as a superset might be done. So you could technically approach this by targeting different muscle groups, maybe doing a chest exercise followed by a back exercise followed by a leg exercise. You might do a chest, back, leg, and possibly some sort of conditioning exercise. Or you might realize that 3 exercises in a row does more than enough conditioning for you, and you want to have nothing to do with anything more than 3 in a row because that's getting more than excessive. But if you do plan to string together longer exercise circuits, be aware that you might want to lighten the load or do less challenging exercises as a general rule, more bodybuilding style exercises, simply because the fatigue will set in and your form will likely start to become compromised. Now, the nice thing about circuits and giant sets is you can also do them for the same muscle group. So, you're super strong, you can bench 300-400 pounds, and you've got 50-pound dumbbells at home. What the heck do you do for your chest? That's not going to be all that effective unless you start out with a pre-fatigue of say 20 reps of chest presses with the 50s, go into as many push-ups as you can do up to 20, chances are you probably won't get 20 after round 2 or 3, and then finish off with a light dumbbell chest fly. 3 exercises in a row, all of them prioritize the same muscle groups, and now you're able to create that relative intensity compared to your individual level of physical strength. So there's many ways to manipulate the variables, as you can see, to work in your favor. It might not be the preferred method, but it's much better than punching the clock every single time you show up at the gym. Now be aware, if you're not used to doing circuits of 3, 4, or 5 exercises in a row, that there is a very high level of conditioning component that now becomes a factor. So if your cardio is kind of weak, your heart rate's going to be up, your breathing is going to be heavy, and you're likely going to be quite sweaty. Just a forewarning. Now, maybe you're set in your ways, you don't like change, you're not going to combine exercises, there's no way you're doing circuits because you're not here to be fit, you're here to be strong. Maybe you don't like stepping outside of your comfort zone. I don't know what the reason is, but the first 4 options, those are just not for you. You want more variables to adjust. Don't worry, the list is not exhausted. So consider tempos. Tempos are a great way to manipulate lighter weights to increase the intensity. So maybe you only have 50-pound dumbbells available and you're used to using 80s, 90s. You know what, you're super strong. Use 100-pound dumbbells, you're tough. But you obviously don't have those right now. So what do? Tempos. Control the repetition through varying tempos on a per repetition basis or on a per set basis. I'll give you an example of both. So let's say you're doing it on a per repetition basis. You might control the weight down for 5 seconds, super, super slow. Pause briefly at the bottom and then explode up. So it might look like 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, keeping tension on the muscles. You're holding for 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, press. And as you can imagine, incorporating tempos on a per repetition basis very quickly increases the time under tension and contributes to more of a hypertrophy approach to training. That's why it's very popular in the bodybuilding community to employ those tempos. Now, you might not like tempos on a per rep basis because it is tough to focus on, and as fatigue sets in and you're focusing on doing the repetition itself, you tend to lose track of your count. It happens. Trying to count the time down and the pause and the time up and vice versa, and then trying to consider what the heck rep you're even on, unless you have a training partner that's being socially distant, this might not be the best approach for you, or it might. If it's not, and you want a simpler approach, you can incorporate tempos into the set itself as more of a general approach. So this looks more like a rest pause. That's what I like to refer to them as. So maybe you're doing your chest presses, you're going to work through a set of 10, then you're going to pause at the bottom, keeping that tension, and you're going to hold for 10 seconds or 15 seconds. You might even hold them at the top, who knows? But you're going to hold them either at the top or the bottom for a predetermined amount of time at regular intervals. So maybe every 5th rep, every 3rd rep, every 10th rep, depending on the size of the set, and then you're going to continue on with the set. And incorporating that pause at that regular interval will increase the time under tension, and it's a little bit easier for people to manage in terms of counting their sets and their reps, as well as the time that they have to be holding throughout that set for. So that's an option as well. Tempo is the 5th thing on the list. Let's move on to number 6. Put a time cap on your workout. This is incredibly effective, very simple to do. So a lot of people right now are just dragging their workouts on, and for no reason whatsoever. They're distracted, they're on their devices, they're checking every social media platform every 32 seconds, and next thing you know, their 45-minute workout took them an hour and 7 minutes. Wasted time and dropped the intensity dramatically to the point where they don't even feel like they really did anything because they kind of didn't At least not where intensity is concerned. They made everything a little bit easier on themselves, and then the workout isn't all that effective. So what you do is you say, okay, this takes me 46 minutes on a good day. So boom, 39-minute cap, let's get busy. You've got dues to pay. I can assure you the intensity will increase dramatically, and even more so if you put a little bit of a penalty on you not completing it in that time frame. Now you're gonna focus on your workout, and you're going to eliminate distractions and get stuff done. And I can assure you, when you punch that clock, you're gonna be very grateful that time is up. Another thing to do, incorporate new exercises, learn something new, right? This is a great approach. Working on weak points, prioritizing drills that maybe you know you should be working on, but you've been procrastinating because they're boring and you don't really want to do them. This is a great time to do them. They're gonna make you better, they're going to contribute to your foundation. And if you can't work at the things you're already good at or that you enjoy, this will help you improve at them when you're able to get back to them. Further, you'd be very, very surprised and arguably humbled at how deceptive some of these exercises that you can incorporate with minimal equipment or no equipment actually are. Even some really, really strong people find themselves very overwhelmed by some exercises that look to be quite basic. So, play around with different variations of exercises. Try a new exercise, and you might be surprised. You might find something new that you like, or you might find something that challenges you enough, makes you feel that your workout was more than effective. And then there's AMRAP sets. AMRAP is an acronym for as many reps as possible. Usually how this is executed is you do as many reps as possible in a predetermined amount of time. So you pick your time frame, 20 seconds, 30 seconds, maybe 45. I'm not sure, that's up to you. And you select an exercise that, and this is the key, you're extremely proficient at. And the reason why this is important, because it doesn't matter how good you are at anything in the weight room, AMRAP sets are going to do you dirty every single time. You could be the best in the world at an exercise. You're gonna get got when you give these a go. It's just how the cookie crumbles. And there should be no cookies in your workouts either, as an aside. Now, when you do these, lighter weight, much lighter weight than usual, you are going for an AMRAP set. You're not trying to lift the heaviest weights you possibly can. That is a recipe for disaster. Again, select an exercise you are incredibly proficient at. So if you just learned something new, not a good choice of exercise. If you have an exercise you're very good at, that would be a good choice of exercise. If that exercise you're good at, you can usually lift 50 pounds, you might want to lower that in half, depending on the time frame that you're incorporating or employing, and you will find it more than adequately intense. I can assure you of that. Another variable that will contribute to the intensity of your exercise is the incorporation of odd implements into your workout session. So there's a couple ways that you can do this. Consider, for example, everyday objects you're going to find around your house. You might be humbled by how challenging some of these things can be. I've seen people flipping tires. I've seen people doing almost stone carry style exercises with objects that they have that are heavy, or they're loading a bunch of random objects into a duffel bag, zipping it up and carrying it that way, almost like a sandbag. I've seen people pushing vehicles. That's an incredible form of conditioning, and anyone who's ever done it can attest to the fact that your legs will be on absolute fire afterwards. As well as doing like farmer's walks, right? Those big water jugs, I don't know how many gallons or liters they may be, but pick some of those bad boys up and go for a short stroll. And very quickly, you're gonna be out of breath, your traps are gonna be working, your grip is going to be giving out, your upper back is going to be on fire. So there's so many approaches you could take, incorporating odd objects that you might find around your house, doing certain exercises with water bottles, or I've even seen clients doing it currently with wine bottles, side laterals, or depending on your strength, overhead presses. There's so many options, and this can very quickly increase the intensity of your workouts, especially if you don't have any equipment available up to this point and you just start incorporating them. Also a good approach. And the last variable, which is arguably one of the more important variables in terms of maintaining consistency of intensity, it's absolutely crucial to have some degree of accountability. A workout buddy or a coach or somebody that's just checking in on you to ensure that you're showing up and you're paying your dues on a regular basis. Right about now, even the most disciplined of people are finding it challenging to remain consistent to the degree of intensity that they might normally execute on in everyday things, not just their workouts. So in order to ensure that you're remaining consistent and holding yourself accountable, have somebody that checks in on you. It could be someone that's doing the same workout program as you. It could be your usual workout buddy at the gym. It could be somebody that you quickly FaceTime or have a Zoom session with to ensure that, hey, I showed up, I'm checking in, I'm here doing what I need to do. Because right about now, there's a lot of reasons that sound very convincing as to why you might procrastinate and push your workout off. And if you do that once, it's going to be that much easier to do it 2 times, 3 times, and then for the foreseeable future. So having that accountability, I cannot stress the importance of enough. Make sure it's there. Hopefully some of those variables are things that you look forward to manipulating so that you can increase the intensity of your workout sessions and feel like you're doing something much more productive and much more progressive. If you have any questions, feel free to let me know. I'll ensure that they get answered in some form of content, or I'll directly contact you and give you an answer relative to your individual inquiries. If you like the video, share the video, tag somebody in the video that might find it useful, and make sure you follow us for more content.